Good
Morning.
to see you. You're dressed in red,
Thank you. Yep.
symbolic of the heart.
Heart. Yeah. Healthy one, of course.
A healthy one. And this morning, as we celebrate World Heart Day, we're looking to get a bit more knowledge and education on why this very important organ of ours has to be preserved. Because you only get one heart, unless I'm mistaken.
Single one
Single one
with 4 chambers.
with 4 chambers.
Yep.
And if you don't take care of that one single heart,
Doom.
you're doomed. And we know that the state of affairs, as far as we're concerned in this part of the world, is not really too great because of many other factors that we know plague us. But tell us, why is World Heart Day so important? And Doc, get close to the mic for me,
Yeah.
please, so we can hear you clearly. Thank you.
Yeah. The World Heart Federation established this day years ago to commemorate and then to celebrate heart awareness. That is to raise the awareness about the fact that we need to take care of our hearts, to raise awareness about the risk factors that lead to heart attacks and strokes. And it's so important because there are close to over 70 million people die from heart-related illnesses or heart attacks and strokes. Globally, roughly about 20.5 million people die. And out of which 85% of global deaths are associated with cardiovascular diseases. And that tells you the significance of this awareness every year on the 29th of September.
That's staggering. These are some
Very much so.
huge figures.
Huge figure.
85%.
85% of the 20.5 million people who died annually and globally is due to heart attacks and strokes.
Goodness me. So one will
More
ask.
than HIV and then more than cancers combined together.
Interesting. So one will ask, what do I do to keep my heart functioning normally and healthy?
This year's tip obviously is use your heart, but know your heart. And how do you know this heart? You know your heart very well by knowing your risk factors.
Okay.
It will interest us to know that this heart that pumps in earth starts at 3 weeks of conception. The heart starts to move, to beat.
I see.
Yeah. And by the time you get to 70 years, your heart might have beaten more than around close to 2.5 billion times.
Wow.
By the time you get to 70, 80 years. And that tells you any the strongest organ in the system. So what will make the strongest organ in the system become weak
Yeah.
or fail? And that is why the risk factors of heart diseases come into being. And the number one cause of heart problems or cardiovascular disease in this country is hypertension.
Okay.
This simple hypertension, we hear, they say I have blood pressure, but they say I should go and exercise to go down. Do not believe that. Insist on proper management of your blood pressure. That will lead to a healthy heart. Because high blood pressure can give you dilated heart, can give you heart attacks, can give you strokes, can give you kidney failure, among other things.
All stemming from high blood pressure.
All stemming from high blood pressure. Then you come to think of it, diabetes,
That's right.
sugar problems, and for those who are families of diabetics, they should be very careful with their diet. Check their weight, among other things. So I summarize these risk factors to knowing your numbers.
Okay.
So statistics, not the beauty statistics
Okay.
at all. The real statistics, which is knowing your blood pressure figure, that is the number of your blood pressure, whether it's high or low, and you might be treated. Number 2, your sugar that I just mentioned. Number 3, you must know your figures for your cholesterol numbers, so that if it's high, because high cholesterol can lead to heart attacks and strokes. Then your weight, that your BMI, you should be able to establish, checking your weight, among other things. But coming to think of these statistics, you must also be aware that your diet is very, very significant. You should eat healthy diet, and then a lot of fruits and vegetables, low carb, low fat foods, among other things. Then smoking,
Okay.
completely disease from smoking, and alcohol. Alcohol can lead to, apart from liver disease that we all know that is related to alcohol, and then some kind of dementia. Alcohol can dilate your heart and make it fail. excessive alcohol intake, because there is a disease called alcoholic cardiomyopathy. That is heart failure or heart dilatation or heart disease secondary to alcohol. Exercises, we need to really regularly do exercises, among other things. And going back to smoking, a lot of people say, no, I don't smoke, but I do shisha. It's 10 times worse than ordinary cigarette smoking.
Okay.
Then there is substance abuse of marijuana, among other things.
That also has an effect on...
That also has effect on your heart, among
see.
other things. So, I mean, then our current environment, which we underestimate, you know, the pollution, the mercury spillage here and there.
That all affects the heart?
All affects the human body and affects the heart significantly. So we should really take care of our environment very, very well. So by knowing your heart, you should know the risk factors. You know, if you know these risk factors, then you are really loving your heart and you're already knowing very well to take care of it so that it will continue to beat right from your 3 weeks of conception till the day probably the Lord calls you to eternity.
Now, you talk about blood pressure and making sure we check the blood pressure. How often should, you know, an average individual be checking?
I normally, each time I have this opportunity, I always mention that we should know our numbers. We should also be able to encode DVLA ourselves, because we go to DVLA to check our vehicles.
That's right.
We should regularly check. Every 6 months, you can do a general check. But your blood pressure regularly, you should probably every 3 months, 2 months, especially if you're at risk. You should be able to walk into any polyclinic, any pharmacy, anywhere to say, look, I just want to check my blood pressure.
Yeah.
And don't take it that your blood pressure is high once, then the technician or pharmacy technician tells you that, oh, look, because you are a busy person, go and rest, and then to go down. Insist on regular blood pressure checks and insist on seeing a doctor before it gets out of hand.
That's very important, because I know doctors like yourself, health experts, can tell you that you might be afflicted with a disease and you will show no symptoms until it's too late, until you present at the hospital with a stroke, for example.
Exactly. That's one thing about blood pressure. It's called a silent killer. I always give a story about this patient around 1994, 95 that I had. He wasn't my patient, just a friend. And then I was consulting. They said, oh, let him pass by and say hello to doc. Then he came to the consulting room. And then I finished seeing a patient. Then he came and sat down. We chatted a bit and he was going, I said, Master, let me check your blood pressure.
Yeah.
His blood pressure was in 200s, 200 over 120. But this man showed no sign of blood pressure.
And at that point, that's a very high blood pressure.
That is significant hypertensive emergency, close to hypertensive emergency.
Really?
But he didn't have any sign. There was no headache. There was no dizziness. I asked, how are you? He said, oh, doctor, I'm fine. I said, you're not fine. Then he said, I don't have any symptoms. Quickly, I had to detain him and then start managing him gradually until the blood. And since then, this is about how many years? 29 years today. And he's still alive because he's had his blood pressure control ever since. Probably if it hadn't been for that intervention, he probably wouldn't have lived maybe more than 10 years after that event.
So had you not checked that pressure on that day, anything could have happened?
It would have suddenly dropped, or kidneys would have started failing gradually, and the heart would have also been dilating gradually until it finally fails. So that is typical of blood pressure. It might not show any symptom, and sometimes it starts slowly, you know, and 140 over 90, 150, and then gradually you are not on any medication, but the heart, there's what we call target organ damage. Because these organs, like the kidney, the heart, among other things, they begin to feel the effect of the blood pressure.
Okay.
And they will start feeling gradually. And that is when you start probably feeling the symptoms. But initially, you might not.
And we all know that prevention is better than cure. But once you find yourself, struggling or living with some of these heart conditions, the remedies are many. Exercise, weight reduction, checking of the food, but also medication. Is it the case that once you start the medication, let's say for high blood pressure, you'll forever be on that kind of medication?
Let me also add salt is very significant, as we mentioned about the eating. Salt is very, very important. Yes, blood pressure. Over 90% of blood pressure patients are essential hypertension, which means that these are coming from family, generations, hereditary, among other things. And this blood pressure is not a curable thing.
Okay.
Its blood pressure is manageable. It's something you manage to control. Okay, so that gradually you control it so that it doesn't go overboard to cause strokes and heart attacks. You go to the stroke units, among other things, you see very young people sometimes, 35, 40, with strokes. And that is because they've not been compliant with their medications, or some of them are in denial, or others have not been taking those medications because of peer pressure that it will reduce their manhood kind of.
And that is something that pops up every time we have these discussions. You know, I work with a number of men in the studio, and they bring up these concerns. But the alternative is not one that they should really go for.
It is not. The alternative they're looking for is stroke. The alternative they are looking for is kidney failure. The alternative they are looking for is heart failure, which we don't really support. So what I advise the youth is, if you have blood pressure. Yesterday I saw a patient like that, and the heart was dilated, and I asked him, I was about 34 or so, and I was like, why? It looks like you are not taking your medication. You've not been compliant with your medication. He said, doctor, it's true. I said, is it because of your performance? He said, yes. He was straightforward. So you stop. He said, yes. And I said, look, you are towards heart attack and stroke.
So that link is true, that the medication does. Okay.
Some medications, let me give that. Some medications do. Not all. There are few of the.
And Doc, just to situate it, when we talk about performance, I know it's only 13 minutes past the hour of 8, but just to performance, we're talking about, in the
sexual activity. Yeah, that weakens them.
Sure.
And it is true. Some of the blood pressure medications do that.
Okay.
What we call the beta blockers and the calcium channel blockers, they do that.
Okay.
But they are not the only ones that control blood pressure. There are some blood pressure medications that don't cause that.
Okay.
And that, in fact, there have been studies made on one of the blood pressure medications that can even stimulate, that can even increase your libido. Okay, so it's up to you to talk to your doctor. And I always advise them, talk to your general physician, or talk to us so that we can give you those alternatives. When I was working at a private facility, I had similar situation. Even cardiothoracic center, you have such cases like that. And there was one who was on that medication, very young man with his wife. They came together, and they said, this is the issue. I just said, okay, this molecule in this medication you are taking is the cause of the problem. I'm going to take it out, leave you with this one that might even help you. 2 weeks' time, he returned, doctor, it's fine. We are doing very well. So it helps it. He didn't go on his way to say, I'm not going to take it, for him to promote stroke and heart attacks, among other things. But he came back, and then we sorted it. And that is why we're advising patients to really seek that advice. The doctor will change it for them.
Important. So young men who are listening to us this morning, just speak with your healthcare provider. The health experts know what to do. And as Doc is saying, the alternative is a stroke. And at that point, say goodbye to any kind of activity or performance. By that point, it's just too late. Now, in terms of the populace that are afflicted with health-related conditions, talk about, even those in their 30s getting stroke. And I know personally somebody around 36 that got a stroke. The ages are getting younger and younger. But we also know amongst our even much younger citizens, they are also afflicted with heart diseases. Is this because of our new habits, the fast food? Kids are now, glued to the tablets and the phones. What can parents do to encourage their kids to be more heart conscious and healthy?
I think we have reached with the globalization, we've adopted certain lifestyles that are inimical to our heart health. And I think that we should do a lot of exercises. The phones have hijacked us. They've hijacked our activities, and now there's no more exercises. There's no more, even in the house with your wife, it's like she's in her zone, you are in your zone. You are sitting now, the TV is watching you, but you are watching your phone. Your phones, So we should encourage exercises. We should encourage healthy eating. The junk foods are all over the place now. And we should cut down on the salt and then the carbs eating. And also sugars, quite a lot, especially those who are predisposed, who are from families of diabetics, among other things. We should cut down on the sugars and limit our smoking. And for the young people, like I mentioned earlier on, we are not smoking now, but at the joints you see them on with shisha, and that is also very, very, very what do you call it? Not good. It doesn't help the heart at all. And regular checks, as I mentioned earlier on, because when the number of the young people who come with high blood, I stress on the high blood pressure because some are in denial, actually. That's why you see them so young. They are in denial, and when even they come to accept it, as we mentioned, they don't take the medication. So we need the non-communicable disease Ministry of Health is rolling out programs that will really help to educate these young people, not only young, I mean, the elderly as well, and to make sure that we have a healthy heart.
Very important. Time check, some 17 minutes past the hour of 8. You're still live here on 3FM Sunrise on 3FM 92.7. It is World Heart Day, and we are wrapping our minds, our heads around some of the themes and concepts as far as today's World Heart Day is concerned. Doc is here in the studio. Doc, what are some of the things that you'll be doing today or this weekend to commemorate the day?
Yeah, we because of we usually have some kind of walks and healthy walking, and health walks and screening that we do. But because of the advent of COVID-19, we slow down our activities. But we are beginning to come up a little bit. So this year, we, in partnership with TV3, we are doing some health screening at your facility here.
That's right.
And then there are other colleagues in other media houses who are also helping to educate the population on heart health. So that is so far what is going on.
Amazing. And we're very grateful for your time this morning and for that very, very important knowledge sharing expedition. We've learned a lot this morning. And I think generally a lot of us know what to do. It's the will and the temerity to do it, to stay healthy, eat well and exercise and all of that. But Doc, final words from you.
Yep. Final word, keep that heart beating. Keep that heart beating and beating well so that it doesn't even have to have some kind of abnormal beating. And you can do that by checking your blood pressures, checking your sugars, checking your weight, and then check your cholesterol. Eat well, exercise, no smoking, whether shisha or whatever, and then cut down alcohol and make sure that your environment is also very clean. Fight for the environment.
Very
Fight
important.
for the environment. Fight against illegal or galamsey to avoid mercury spillage and contaminating our waters, among other things.
Very important.
Significant for healthy hearts.
Thank you so much, Doc.
Thank you.
Again, that was Dr. Abdul Samad Tanko, Head of Cardiology Division of the National Cardiothoracic Center and Chairman of World Heart Day Planning Committee, telling us how to keep our hearts healthy. It is very, very important. Some great lessons to be learned this morning.
3FM Sunrise.
We're going on a very quick break.